All right, check. Sound. Oh, there it is. All right. All right. So, shalom, y'all. Happy Sabbath. Most High in Christ bless. Happy New Moon. 1 second. Okay. All right. Shalom. Happy Sabbath, y'all. Most High in Christ bless. Um. Tonight's topic is seeing sin through. Seeing sin through. I'm hoping that some people, whoever does watch this, got a somewhat of a. I felt it pretty. It's, it's a pretty good. Uh, the class picture is it's kind of self evident. Of things and how our relation to how things move in motion. Um, it's not to say like in Sirach 18 where the Most High is in control of all things, but um, it does kind of help us to understand what our place is in all this. Because you're gonna, most people arrive at the point where it's like God's to blame for everything. Like when things are going well, uh, you know, God never. It's not even really in your mind. It's kind of like last week's class about what is success. But when things are going bad, people always look at God as he's the fall guy, as always, and never the person in the reflection in the mirror. It's always the case. But nevertheless, this is kind of the poison of man from the dust of the ground, right? Um, but um, Lord's will is makes sense and resonates with some of y'all. I hope it helps. Let's start off in John chapter 9. John chapter 9. Um, what? Just trying to make sure all this would work. Okay. John chapter 9 and verse 31. It says, "Now we know that God heareth not sinners. But if any man be a worshipper of God and doeth his will, him he heareth." I don't want to get it on this topic of free will and stuff. That's for another topic, I guess. Verse 32. Since the world began, was it not heard that any man opened the eyes of one that was born blind? If people don't know, the chapter begins in John 9 about this guy that was blind from his birth, right? And then a miracle happens to where Christ returns his sight to him. So that's kind of the context of the chapter if you haven't read it. Since the world began, verse 32, it was began, was it not heard that any man opened the eyes of one that was born blind? If this man were not of God, he could do nothing, right? Because the accusations from the Pharisees came about that they hear about this and they're just like, they was trying to discredit Christ at every turn. But they hear about this and they call this man, call his parents or whatever, trying to justify or reconcile to see if he was actually blind from his birth. He actually was, but they was trying to do whatever they could to discredit him. Verse 34, they answered and said unto him, Thou wast altogether born in sins, and dost thou teach us? And they cast him out because they wanted to try to make this man as if he was into some type of liar or something. So they cast him out, them sitting on a high seat all the time. Don't tell me, don't criticize me, don't come at me. We're the ones that are teachers of the law. You can't tell me no different, right? Now, this is always interesting because this theme always plays out throughout history of the Bible, creation, whatever. When a person can try to, people try to, they don't have a problem. I wouldn't say acting. They don't have a problem being who they are. Some people are intelligent, right? They might not have wisdom as according to the Bible, but they're not idiots. They're intelligent people. Though people want to parade when certain times happen, they want to parade that in front of people to make themselves look a certain way. And then when that same clarity that a person always shows should be evident and brought forth whenever something other topic comes up, whether it be accountability or criticism, then all of a sudden the blinders go on. And it's just like, oh, I want to feign stupid. And I'm not sure about this. I'm unclear about how this goes. When your entire time around them for the past year or whatever, you shown them to be an intelligent person. They're just at this point trying to escape some type of accountability. This happens, men, women, all across the board all the time. But at the end of the day, that the person that's acting like that at whatever particular time is just running game on you because you've seen them operate with a level of intelligence before said circumstance came about. You've seen it all the time. Unless you want to believe yourself to be an idiot, that person, you've been around them, they're running game on you, right? Same thing with the Pharisees. Verse 35. And Jesus heard that they had cast him out. And when he found him, he said unto him, Dost thou believe on the Son of God? He answered and said, Who is he, Lord, that I might believe on him? And Jesus said unto him, Thou hast both seen him, and it is he that talketh with thee. So Christ is letting him know. Verse 38, and he said, Lord, I believe, and he worshipped him. Verse 39, and Jesus said, For judgment, understand that, for judgment I am come into this world, that they which see not might see, and that they which see might be made blind. Now, Christ says in another instance, I'm not the one that's going to judge you. The law is here to do that. Now, both are simultaneously true. He's just the one that's acknowledging, because on a higher level of understanding, Christ is he's the reflection that has come to show everybody who they are. He's the mirror that's standing in front of everybody that forces you to look at who you are. And you can't wiggle your way around it. You can't bring some little animal sacrifice to get around stuff. The purpose of Christ coming and getting rid of animal sacrifice is, one, to return it to the beginning of how it was supposed to be, but helping a person to change internally who they really are instead of putting makeup on the demon that they're presenting themselves to be. You have to recognize who you are to make a significant change, right? Verse 40. And some of the Pharisees which were with him heard these words and said unto him, Are we blind also? Now, what's you see oftentimes with people like, well, you might have a conversation with somebody and you'll see somebody, you'll say one thing and you kind of sit back, and some people might just like start spilling things out you didn't even ask for, because there might be an awkward silence. It might be an uncomfortable situation, and you'll see people just start spilling their whole mind out. Like Luke 6 talks about, listen to the stuff that come out of their heart, that proceeds out of their mouth. You start to understand certain things. The Pharisees were no different. Everybody's like this, right? Unless scriptures tell you to say less, so you might be found to be wise, and you'll be a person that can't be necessarily convicted off of a few things that you said. The police do this all the time, right? They read you your rights and they tell you, what's the phrasing, these words can be held against you in a court of law. They say these things. Intelligent people would say, listen, did you do this? Does the cop say? Intelligent people were like, lawyer. That's what they'll say. Idiots spill out their mind. listen, we're going to lock you up. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. People not necessarily knowing the system. I don't necessarily know the system, but I know how a so-called white man work. It nonetheless, an intelligent person would say, "Listen, you've seen enough NYPD and SVU shows. Lawyer, that's the only thing you need to tell the cops, because they're going to get you spilling all these different things when you're going to talk yourself into some type of conviction when they honestly didn't have anything on you." But this is what the Pharisees remove the veil, and you start to see what the Pharisees, they understood, they were convicted. You saying that we're blind also, that was the Christ has just made a statement, and the Pharisees chime up that information. Verse 41, Jesus said unto them, if ye were blind, ye should have no sin. But now ye say, we see, therefore your sin remaineth, right? Just keep all this in mind. It's a, stuff like this will show you at the end of the day, when judgment comes, nobody can really hide because it's so obvious. Even though the people that claim to not believe in God, or, you know, I'm atheist, whatever it may be, certain things that people do and the way that their lives are lived will convict them. You don't have to be like, oh, I understand this, I can comprehend. You don't need to know all that. There's a few things that people do, or a lot of things throughout they do in their day-to-day life, that you can convict them. You can watch them and know you're ready for judgment. You're not a person that's just going to be like, I don't know anything. God comes to you, I'm clueless. I didn't know how this process worked. People know. Let's go to Job, Book of Job, chapter 6. Shalom, Paz. What's going on, man? Happy Sabbath, bro. Happy New Moon. Um, the Book of Job, chapter 6. Job chapter 6, verse 1. It says, but Job answered and said, oh, that my grief were thoroughly weighed, and my calamity laid in the balances together. For now it had been heavier than the sand of the sea. Therefore my words are swallowed up. One second. Um, Job 6, let me start again. Job 6 and 1. But Job answered and said, oh, that my grief were thoroughly weighed, and my calamity laid in the balances together. For now it would be heavier than the sand of the sea. Therefore my words are swallowed up. This is a typical procedure. Obviously, anybody moves like this because things are happening, right? Everybody knows how this is how life works. All across the board, this is how life works. Job's proclaiming something because something's happening. Verse 4, for the arrows of the Almighty are within me, the poison whereof drinketh up my spirit. The terrors of God do set themselves in array against me. Doth the wild ass bray when he has grass, or loweth the ox over his fodder? Now, this is Job is just like I mentioned. This is life in a nutshell, right? It's just everything cause and effect. Everything. Job's Job is lamenting his what he's doing is in effect. That's what's happening. It's the end result of the trials that the Lord is allowing Job to go through, which happens to be the cause, right? The Most High caused the trials that was befallen on Job. That's the cause. Job lamenting all the stuff he's going through is the effect, right? All of life works like this. Job, the only difference is that Job was different in the fact that Job didn't derive pleasure out of sin or being against the Most High. It's not what Job did. It's just trials and stuff that he's going through. Like Matthew 5 says, it rains on the just and the unjust, right? These things happen in life. But there's a difference between trials and you being severely punished for stuff that you are doing, right? It's a difference. But nonetheless what Job is doing, um is just lamenting the trials and stuff that he's going through, right? Everybody knows that this is how life works. Um, sorry. Everybody, let me put this down. Everybody knows that's how life works, right? This is just the cause and effect of everything, right? Let's go to Proverbs 26. Proverbs 26 and verse 2. We kind of, me and a couple of brothers, we had talked about this. A few brothers talked about this last week. Um, Proverbs 26 and 2, it says, as the bird by wandering, as the swallow by flying, so the curse causeless shall not come. And it's just, the swallowing is just another bird at the end of the day. Swallowing, the swallow and the bird wandering, the swallow is just another bird. It's the exact same thing. Meaning, if a bird never lands and it's just continuing to travel whatever route it's traveling on, it won't arrive at a destination, right? Curses apply are the exact same way. If you are a person that is not deserving of certain curses or things that are going to be placed on you, they won't land because you are the person that's not necessarily doing all these different things. Now, that's not to say that an Israelite that's a commandment keeper is not going to go through trials. Hence, Job's situation. That's not to say that it's not going to happen. Your life isn't just 72 degrees and sunflowers all day. It's not a thing because there's a certain way that adversity builds character in everybody, whatever rate that the Most High might put you through it. But this is how stuff works, right? Now, when you see something like this that causes, uh, so the curse causes shall not come, you should understand that when you read something like that, that means that everybody has decisions to make in their day-to-day life, right? Everybody has decisions to make. Because if curses are not going to come that hasn't been caused, then you have decisions to make based on the ones that you do make. Those things are start to be brought your way, right? Everybody knows this. Like in Romans 1, and it talks about. Let me not chop this up. Romans 1 and 20. Let me read it directly. Romans chapter 1 in verse 20. It says, for the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen. The invisible things from the creation are clearly seen. This is your philosophy and the laws of thermodynamics and all these other things that these Edomites, they always philosophizing and coming up with these ideas to try to explain away creation. They do this all the time. They just throw stuff out there to see what sticks. Some things have been discovered, right? They're legitimate. They work. Mathematics works. There's certain things that are legitimate. But that's not to say, by any stretch of the imagination, that the things that Esau be throwing against the wall lands all the time. It's not. They make stuff up to fit things. Like, if you were to plug in right now, you plug in Google and type in, how was the moon created? The explanation that Google gives is that a meteor hit the Earth and then it just backtracked and sat there and it just became the moon. This is science, though, but people trust in science so much, just like they trust in politics, right? For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even to his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. That's the point. They're without excuse. Everybody knows everything's cause and effect, right? Everything in the universe has come from some type of creator. Same thing on the earth. Buildings are created because somebody created them, right? My laptop's created because somebody created the camera. Everything you see, but somehow you'll have all these geniuses get together and they be like, well, maybe uh, there can't be God because something was created out of nothing, which their own laws and how they write stuff down doesn't even coincide with that. It's a complete contradiction. But the Lord's telling you the exact same thing. The things that you see are proof that the Most High exists, whether it be visible or invisible. These are the things that are showing you evidently that you can look at and possibly you can completely and thoroughly understand by what you're seeing, right? It should convict you because we all know causes and effects Causes and effects. We all know these different things. In a way, like I mentioned earlier, you can kind of understand how people get this. The same way the Pharisees got it is if even a person that's uh, agnostic, right? Or a person that's not sure that God exists, or a person that's just an outright atheist. It always seems to be funny how these type of people, these type of people on many categories and many situations, they will be on the same side as God, right? Like most people agree, not everybody. We have outliers and everything. Which is the reason why the world's so messed up. But most people would agree that murder is wrong, lying's wrong, rape is wrong, stealing's wrong. Most people agree on these different things, right? It's not by coincidence that people just believe these things in mass because there's a portion of the Most High that is given every spirit that understands certain things are inherently wrong. It's the exact same way that somebody will tell you, listen, I was born gay. I'm like, well, that is interesting because your body doesn't show that you're gay. You have a certain reproductive system and organs that completely and perfectly match with the opposite gender. So this is where people come up with all these philosophies to try to separate your mindset from your physical body. Doesn't make any sense, right? Your mind is gay, but your body's not. It doesn't make any sense. Same way, like I had seen a guy mention this before about how a person uh, engaged in same-sex acts, but then when the life of the man or the sperm leaves him, it's automatically programmed to go find the egg. So the sperm's not gay, but the person's gay. None of that stuff makes any sense. But these are the things the Most High said I've made man upright, but they've completely sought out all kinds of different inventions, right? So you see a lot of people line up on the same side that the Most High is dictated and express things that are wrong and right. Now, you might have a lot of people might say that the reason why stuff like this is because we have law enforcement, right? The law deters or judgment deters certain things. Maybe that might be a piece of it or a case of it, but some people might engage in these things that they claim is not that big of a deal, but they start to go back and land back on the side of the Most High when you bring those things closer to home. Like if a person would have forced himself on a woman, he can be like, well, there's no morality. There's no right or wrong. I'm just stronger than her. I can take what I want. Doesn't matter. Now I'm like, okay, well, you're cool with somebody doing that to your daughter then. Oh no, that's different. No, that's weird. It doesn't make any sense. Like dudes will say all the time, it's no problem that guys just be whoremongers and just run through women all the time. Sex to men is like a handshake. It's not that big of a deal. I'm like, cool. Let me sleep with your wife. Oh no, I can't. I'm like, well, I thought it wasn't that big of a deal. But this is the evilness in men, right? So good good and evil play the exact same dualism. Like you'll see both sides of it. The cause and effect. Good and evil does the same thing. Let's go to Lamentations 3. Lamentations chapter 3. And this is the reason why I said, like Job points out, like you'll read Job 39, and it just goes down the chapter about animals and the way that they operate and the things that they do and the things that the Most High has put on them to maneuver in a specific way. You can tell the differences between certain animals, right? You see all these things throughout creation that bolster the point of you understanding how things work. Everybody does. They'll try to deny it and say things like, I don't believe this, I don't believe that, but your own actions dictate that you believe it. It's just that you know how people are. They'll do whatever they can to maneuver out of accountability and not be put on the chopping block for something that they did. Everybody does that. Though people think that they're slick when they're doing it, but it's obvious if you kind of know what you're looking for. Lamentations chapter 3, verse 37. It says, who is he that saith, and it cometh to pass, when the Lord commanded it not? Nobody. Out of the mouth of the Most High proceedeth not good, not evil and good, right? If a man understands that the only way you know good is if you have evil, right? The only way you can say this is evil if you have good. Everybody abides by these standards. Though they'll try to throw up in the air and be like, well, we're not so sure. You can't prove there's absolute good. Can't prove these different things. But people don't live like that. They just say these things to get away from the things that they're doing, or accountability for the things that they're doing. The Most High says, evil and good come out the same way. All men understand this. Verse 39. Wherefore or why then does a living man complain, a man for the punishment of his sins? Let us search and try our ways and turn again to the Lord. So if a man understands this, then why would a person complain about these things? In certain states and instances that people find themselves in, the Lord's only giving you what you called for. You deserve. These are all self-inflicted wounds, right? Even going back to Adam, that's why I said at the beginning, people like to play God as a fall guy. I'm innocent. God did this to me. And this is all his fault at the end of the day. It's just like, well, if I put a mirror up and I ask you, did you do this? Did you do this wrong? Did you do this? Well, yeah, but how are you giving yourself all this grace and then blaming everything on the Most High? None of that stuff makes any sense. It doesn't. Let's go to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1. Shalom, Sadak. Happy Sabbath, man. Happy New Moon, bro. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1. And that's why it's always funny when, like, it's like, I guess it's like sometimes it's like when somebody articulates something a particular way, you always kind of had in the back of your mind, or you weren't as convicted on it because you couldn't explain it a certain way. But that's one thing the Bible, many things, but that's one of the things that the Bible does when you start to understand like people's behavior and stuff. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 12. It says, seek not death in the error of your life, and pull not upon yourselves destruction with the work of your hands, just self-inflicted wounds, right? So I mentioned earlier that if the curse doesn't have a cause, it ain't gonna come. So there's certain decisions that you're making that can put yourself in predicament situations, right? These are the things that a person has to be accountable for, and you can't just look up and then be like, it's your fault. Everybody knows how things work, right? It's the same way. If I can't just say that, like, people will just blame things on God, but if I do something to somebody else's family member or whatever, they want me thrown in jail. The same person that says there's no such thing as good and evil, they want me thrown in jail for something I did. They're not true to their own standards. The Lord's explaining it clear as day. Everybody understands it, but they play these games. You are doing certain things that is going to cause these errors in your life, right? Verse 13. For God made not death, neither have he pleasure in the destruction of the living, like Ezekiel 18. The Lord says, turn from your ways. Why is it that you want to kill yourself? For he created, verse 14, for he created all things that they might have their beginning, their being. And the generations of the world were healthful, and there is no poison of destruction in them, nor the kingdom of death upon the earth. For righteousness is immortal. Now we know, like in verse 13, where it says God didn't make death, we know the Most High controls all things. The same way he said that out of the mouth of the Most High proceeds good and evil. But the functions of them might be different. The Most High did not make man to be just a person that's just supposed to enjoy or endure death forever. It's not the purpose of the creation. But certain actions, as we know, if righteousness is immortal, and you can say something's righteous, then obviously there is an inverse to that. There's people that's doing unrighteous things, and if righteousness brings immortality, then doing something outside of righteousness is going to bring death. It just makes perfect sense. There is no up without down. This is how things work. Everybody knows this. Verse 16. But ungodly men with their works and their words called it to them. For when they thought to have it their friend, they consumed to naught and made a covenant with it, because they are worthy to take part with it. Now, keep this in mind, right? Let's go to 2 Samuel 13. These aren't situations where, like, you're going to look at a person and being like, man, this person's going through a lot of different things. It's just completely an innocent person. Some things are, like I mentioned earlier, it rains on the just and the unjust. But a lot of the things, majority of the things that you see on the earth are people that have raised their hand and just begged the Most High for punishment. And you see these end results of these behaviors that people consistently engage in, and they always act like this. People know these things is the way things work, right? Cause and effects, different things that are going to come because of the things that you put in motion. But people act like they don't, it's like they lose all rationale when it comes to the Most High's law. Like there's no such thing as ramifications of breaking God's law. But somehow they understand if I run through a traffic light, that there's going to be ramifications for that. If I steal something from somebody, it's going to be ramifications for that. But somehow the creator of all things, I don't really have to worry about that, and it doesn't apply to me. Nothing's going to come my way if I decide to break that higher level of law. But the basic stuff that man has created, I know he's going to put me in prison or judge me off of the things that I'm doing. That doesn't make any sense, right? As on earth as it is as in heaven as it is on earth, these things work simultaneously, and it gives you a better understanding of how the Most High operates. It's just that once sin comes into the picture, people start to try to move away from it because they don't want to be accountable for stuff. People come up with all kinds of different things to make excuses for the way they're behaving. 2 Samuel 13 and 1. Yoel, shalom, man. Most High in Christ bless, bro. Happy new moon, fam. 2 Samuel 13 and verse 1. And it came to pass after this that Absalom, the son of David, had a fair sister whose name was Tamar. And Amnon, the son of David, loved her. Now pay attention to this wording, right? The scriptures are saying that Amnon loved her. And we love equals commandment keeping, and there's a me and a brother got, I wouldn't say arguing, we got into a conversation some time ago, and we was going back and forth about is love strictly commandments, or is there an emotional component to it? And I understand by blatant definition biblically, yeah. I understand it's commandment keeping, but there is an affection that man might have for his wife, right? There's an affection that parents might have with their kids. That's love. We know it's commandment keeping, but there is an emotional component to it. But not to go down a rabbit hole. The scriptures talk about how Amnon loved her, right? Now a person has to figure out, they should know, if this is love or is this lust. The scripture's saying Ammon believes that this is love this is what you would think that the person is taking place in the mind of a sinful person. This is not something that's just like an overnight thing, right? This is his sister. A person has this mindset where with his sister, we know Leviticus 18 talks about this. We know if a person's saying to the point where I love my sister like that, this isn't an overnight thing. This is something building, right? Scriptures tell you in Wisdom of Solomon 1, people are doing things in the era of their life. They're pulling their way death. They're pulling it in a direction. That Proverbs 26, we mentioned about that bird that's just flying. That curse is starting to land because a person is worthy of it, right? They're going to take part of it. Verse 2. And Amnon was so vexed, that's how you know it's not necessarily overnight, that he fell sick for his sister Tamar, for she was a virgin, and Amnon thought it hard for him to do anything to her, right? And this is let's go back to Wisdom of Solomon real quick. Wisdom of Solomon 4. These are one of them like really really clarifying things about the Bible as time goes on. About like you'll have people go to school for like psychology, like they'll have the degrees and they'll sit on the couch and they'll talk to people about their problems and their issues and stuff. And then typically, I don't know which one it is, but they'll prescribe medication and all sorts of stuff, right? But it is funny because like once you understand the Bible, you understand people. You start to understand yourself even more. And One thing that the Bible has uh, really made clear, helped me understand, is that if people's behavior, if you sprinkle like a little bit of pleasure into anything, right, a person's mind will start to uncouple from reality, right? It'll start to separate, and then immediately the actions become trivialized, like the consequences to action become trivialized, and people just push towards fulfilling whatever urge that they have. And this is the reason everybody, if you've been on the street, you know this. If you talk to, you don't even have to necessarily be at camp. If you in the truth and you understand, you talk to family or friends or whatever, and you say something to them that you know is clear as day, like we was talking about in when we started off in John 9, the Pharisees was like, "Are you saying I'm blind? Like you're saying that we're blind?" You see it come out of them. It's convicting them. You understand it's just something pulling out of them that the spirit's just talking. And when you have conversations with people, you know when you're saying something to them, it's as clear as day. There is no Sunday worship in the Bible. There is no people that's just God's rewarding people for breaking the Sabbath. You don't see that. There is no just eat pork, don't worry about it. It's not there. But the minute you say that to somebody and you can read it, just sit back and then watch them. Just listen to their spirit. And then they'll start spilling out whatever they can to eat chitlins the next weekend, whatever they can to stay on the pork. It doesn't have to make any sense. It's that's just drawing out of the spirit on them to see what's sitting on them and trusting or you're understanding that they have this level of emotional tie with the sin. Right? The Bible completely lets you start to see this stuff. It starts to cut them, like Hebrews 4 talks about. And it starts to pull things out of people, right? And it's just instead of having some level of discipline or being truthful in saying that they understand what you're saying, they'd rather put all that rationale to the side and execute whatever urge that they have to bring forth, right? Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 4, and verse 12. It says, "For the bewitching of naughtiness doth obscure things that are honest," right? Or the enchantment of wickedness, how like this Hebrews talks about this pleasure of sin for a season, right? The the allure of like there's that Jay-Z had that Black album, right? And there was a song on there called Allure. And he mentioned about it's not too many lyrics I remember from that, but I remember this line about he said the allure of breaking the law is something too hard for me to ever ignore, or something like that, right? And this is how sin operates. Like this is the fascinating thing about breaking God's law is that it's enjoyable, feels entertaining, and the scriptures say when the bewitching of naughtiness it starts to obscure things that are honest, right? Honesty is clear. The Most High says, "I'm not the author of confusion." Truth is clear, right? Lies are confusing. So honesty is pretty straightforward and clear, but the allure of doing wickedness, it starts to distort your reality. In the wandering of concupiscence doth undermine the simple mind. And this is the process that starts to take place when you're watching people partake in different things that they have no business doing, right? You're starting to see all these different things, the overload of pleasure. Like you'll see, I caught this video. I sent it to a couple of brothers. Some people kind of, I wouldn't say it's, I don't know when it started. They were talking about this huge thing with fentanyl. You know, it's a big thing now in most of these cities and drug addicts and stuff. But you'll see like what an overload of overloading the pleasure sensories do, right? If you have a person, you inject them with heroin or fentanyl or whatever it may be, you start to see the damaging effects of too much pleasure, right? People think that pleasure is just this great thing, but it's bringing death upon you and it's putting you in a prison. It's making you a servant or a slave to it. Same thing Christ was talking about in John 8, telling the Pharisees and stuff. You're going to be a slave to this thing. But people don't think about it because it's so it's so enjoyable that a person doesn't want to set those things aside. But a heavy drug addict, you can see the ramifications of it. The funny thing is like they have meetings for this. Like they have AA meetings for stuff like this. The funny thing is you don't really have a AA meeting specifically for like I'm a sometimes sinner, right? Like not a person that's overloading himself consistently every single day. You'll see what drugs do that, right? But they might be probably an addict like that might be he might be an easier way to convert him versus somebody else that's a dibbler and a dabbler in sin because that person don't know they have a problem. Like when you talk to them, they're just like, oh, I don't have any issues. I'm just having casual sex. I'm just getting high every now and then. It's not a problem. And in person, people will say things like a functional alcoholic. And then a person will just be like, well, since I can complete my tasks from day to day, it's not an issue, right? I'm not an addict. But we all know, I know, they know, that if I were to cut them off completely from whatever they're engaging in, we're going to start to see whatever spirit they have when it come out. People don't want to acknowledge that. They'll just throw things at you, like family members or whoever on the street say, is we all got to die someday. You wouldn't pay for cancer though. If I made you pay for cancer and I injected you, you wouldn't pay for it. No, that's stupid. You have a pack of cigarettes though. Yeah, we all have to die someday. You start to see these things come out of people when you talk to them. And it's very fascinating. If you, to me, it is when you pay attention to these things. It's just like it's amazing what people will do to hang on to sin at the end of the day, right? And the higher the level of pleasure goes, the more intimate a person's relationship becomes with evil. Like you, it doesn't matter if they want to execute it, like we're reading about Amnon, they want to execute it, everything goes out the window. This is how you know this is just spirits invading people. This is how you know things when you see Christ pulling spirits out of people. This stuff's real. Like just because you don't see somebody like foaming at the mouth or falling all over themselves, you do see that though. Even though you don't see that on a person that has a suit and a tie going to work, he still got demons on him. It's the exact same thing. It just looks functional, so he's passable to look like he's a normal citizen in society, right? Um, let's go back to 2 Samuel 13. 2 Samuel 13 in verse. I'm gonna pick up 2 again. And Amnon was so vexed that he fell sick for his sister Tamar, for she was a virgin. And Amnon thought it hard for him to do anything with her, right? So, he's drumming up these different things. He's not putting aside the fact that I want to engage in a sexual relationship with my sister. Is he so consumed by what he's doing? Lay all that aside. It's this unsatiable thing that he needs to quench at that particular time, right? Verse 3. But Amnon had a friend whose name was Jonadab. Now interestingly enough, Wisdom of Solomon 1, that's why I went there. Wisdom of Solomon says that a person that is talking about engaging in these different things, they're looking for the friendship of death. And always, lo and behold, Jonadab pops up, his friend pops up, and then starts pushing this thing further and further into his delusion, right? This is the friend that he wants to acquaint himself with. Eventually, it's going to pull death upon you, right? That curse is going to fall on this man. But Amnon had a friend whose name was Jonadab, the son of Shimeah, David's brother, and Jonadab was a very subtle man. Same thing as Genesis, the exact same thing as Genesis 3. Verse 4, and he said unto him, why art thou, being the king's son, like uplifting him, you're the king's son, lean from day to day? Will thou now tell me? And Amnon said unto him, I love Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister, right? The terminology is not. It's his sister, pushing it off as if, let me distance myself. That's his sister, right? Verse 5. And hold on. Go to Proverbs 25 real quick. Proverbs 25, verse 20. Is it 24 or 25? I mentioned Adam. Proverbs 25, verse 27. It says, it is not good to eat much honey. So for men to search their own glory is not glory. right? Well, I'll jump back just to help you understand if you don't know what that verse means or what it's referring to. Proverbs 24, 13 and 14. Proverbs 25 says not to eat much honey, and it's equating it to a person that's seeking out their own glory is not glory, right? Proverbs 24:13 says, my son, eat thou honey because it is good, and the honeycomb which is sweet to thy taste. So shall the knowledge of wisdom be unto thy soul. When thou hast found it, then there shall be a reward, and expectation shall not be cut off. So what does this mean? It's only equating wisdom and honey together, right? But the fact that a person would seek to eat too much honey is a person that's deviating from the path that the Most High would have you on. You don't need to you don't need to keep searching and searching and searching. The Most High said, this is good, this is bad. This was Adam's issue. You're consistently pushing to learn more or to know more or to be like God. You're doing all these different things. You don't need the experience. You need to learn. The ultimate creator said, this is good, this is bad, follow the good path. That's it. That's all you need to do. You don't need to keep searching different things and pushing, because this is when men starts to come up with their own inventions. They start rationalizing bad behavior. They start trying to put some explanation to why I killed this person. He shouldn't have stepped on my shoes. Why I was born gay. God made a mistake. None of that stuff makes any sense. It's just that the lust and the sin is so embedded in the person that they will come up with anything because they're so attached to that death. That's the friend. It's the relationship that's being cultivated between them and evil. They love it, and they don't do anything to keep it and not let it go. Let's go back to second. Actually, let's go to Romans 7 real quick, because it's kind of the exact same. Applies the exact same way. Because these things are built into the same. This is built into the same spirit of a person like this. Paul, whenever somebody talks about, anybody mentions Romans 7, most people know Romans 7 1 through, like, what is it, 1 through 8, 9, 10. Most people start to go in the back half of the chapter, because this is always it's always the interesting part of Romans 7, of how you'll start to see the weird connection between, or the weird conflict between spirit and flesh, back and forth, back and forth. In Romans 7 and 21, this is the reason why the Lord says things in Proverbs 25 to not seek out your own glory. Because the more if the Most High told you what's right and wrong, that's the end of it. If you continue to seek and to push, the only thing that you're going to discover is your own will. That's it. There's nothing else out there, right? The Most High, when the Most High says something, that's it. This is the end. It's the end all be all. You don't need to know what's around the corner. It ain't good for you. Romans 7 and 21. If I find then a law, that when I would do good, evil is present with me, right? We know laws are made to be obeyed, commanded, right? It's like a commandment. The Lord says the water's not going to go past here on the shore. It's commanded. It's going to stop, right? Paul said, I find a law. The person keeps digging, and he's starting to see this unhinged feeling of desiring to do evil, but wanting to do good. You keep searching and you find a law within yourself, right? Verse 22, I delight in the law of God after the inward man, right? The spiritual man, that Christ that's in you. You're supposed to be seeking for that, right? Not physical, it's spiritual. Verse 23, but I see another law in my members, or my flesh, warring against the law of my mind, and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my members. Now, this is the reason why you'll read things in, like, Revelation about a person's not supposed to come to the Lord lukewarm. There's no such thing as lukewarm. The Lord said, "Be hot or cold." Lukewarm is cold, right? There is no three parts to this. Either you're with the Lord or you're not. Like the correlation from lukewarm, when you're looking at people, is like an atheist and a half a half a Christian, right? They don't, a person that's eating pork every now and then, not because he's struggling, right? I still don't necessarily grant you the access. Most I can give nobody a license to sin. But there's people that struggle with stuff, right? There's a person that's a Christian that's just like, I eat pork because the Lord don't care, right? They might believe or buy a Bible or spend some time in Bible study, but they're lukewarm. They're going to be killed too. No different than the person that's an atheist, just like, I don't buy none of that stuff because none of it makes any sense and God's not real. They're going to be killed along with the lukewarm person. It's not really a difference between them. But that's the reason why the Lord, one of the big reasons why the Lord says, don't be lukewarm, because your flesh is never lukewarm. It's always one way. If you engage in it, it's going to activate. It always does. There's a law within your flesh. It's going to operate this way. It's your law follows this code consistently. So if you don't put some type of parameters on this thing, right? Don't ever think that um you know, I'm not engaging in fornication or whatever because I've conquered the flesh. No, you can't be deceived like that, right? The only reason why your flesh is not doing it is because you're actively willing it not to, right? You have to put the parameters on it. Otherwise, you'll be like everybody else in the world that think they're living their life, but they're actually a slave to sin. They think they're free. Most people think that. That's what most people's mindsets is. It ain't true. They are just a slave to their emotions and their feelings. So this is the law that you're going to find, and that law is always going to be accurate until the Lord gets rid of it, right? This is the curse placed on all men. So don't think that, yeah, I'm good today. So why the scriptures tell you to take heed lest you fall, because it's always there. Sirach 21 tells you to run from sin, flee as if it's the face of a serpent. Don't engage in it because you're going to be conquered eventually, right? Second Samuel, back to Second Samuel 13. Verse 5. And Jonadab said unto him, Lay thee down on thy bed, and make thyself sick. And when thy father cometh to see thee, say unto him, I pray thee, let my sister Tamar come, and give me meat. Dress the meat in my sight, that I may see it, and eat it at her hand. So Amnon lay down. He fully sold now. He's already been plotting this for a while. He just didn't figure out how to do it. And then here's the subtle man giving him an alley-oop. Commit the sin. This is how you do it and get away with it, right? Verse 6. So Amnon lay down and made himself sick. When the king was come to see him, Amnon said unto the king, I pray thee, let Tamar my sister, now it's back to my sister, come, and make me a couple of cakes in my sight, that I may eat at her hand. Then David sent home to Tamar, saying, Go now to thy brother Amnon's house, and dress him meat. So Tamar went to her brother Amnon's house, and he was laid down. And she took flour and kneaded it, and made cakes in his sight, and did bake the cakes. And she took a pan and poured them out before him, but he refused to eat. And Amnon said, Have out all men from me. And they went out, every man from him. And Amnon said unto Tamar, Bring the meat into the chamber, that I may eat of thy hand. And Tamar took the cakes which she had made, and brought them into the chamber to Amnon her brother. And when she had brought them unto him to eat, he took hold of her, and said unto her, Come lie with me, my sister. Now, this is a fully enraged sin. It's at the highest height. And it's the Lord always says, I've given you a way to back out of many different things, right? The scriptures talk about in James, let a man not say that he's tempted. He's only tempted if he's drawn away of his own lust, right? That makes sense. The beginning of this chapter talked about how he was so in love with her. This is lust. It drawing you away from the purpose of the Most High, or laws of the Most High told you, do not do this. But he's engaging in it. He's so inflamed that he can't control himself at this point. He's sold out for it. Verse 12. And she answered him, Nay, my brother, do not force me, for no such thing ought to be done in Israel. Do not thou this folly. And I, whither shall I cause my shame to go? And as for thee, thou shalt be as one of the fools in Israel. Now therefore I pray thee, speak unto the king, for he will not withhold me from thee. And this is just a ploy to get away, because there's no way he's going to grant this. This is directly against the law. It's his sister, right? But these are all situations that are open up for Amnon. I got to stop this, to shut it down. But he keeps pushing and pushing, and then the death is starting to draw near and near, right? This is every. That's why I was mentioning earlier the cause and effects of everything. Everybody knows how this is creation works. Every part of your life uh, kind of bolsters this point about everything that you do. These certain things like that. I don't know who was the guy that had the, you know, just like they. I seen Sadak had put the post up about the fade of Travis Kelce. Now it's the Travis Kelce fade. It's just, Esau, man, take everything. I forgot the dude's name that said, with every action is an equal and opposite reaction. Okay. Congratulations. This is something that's been always known. That's not something new. That's not even profound. It's just reality. It's how it works, right? But they attribute it to such a great quote. Anyway, verse 14. Howbeit he would not hearken unto her voice, but being stronger than she, forced her and lay with her. Right? This is how you can tell, like, the craziness that some brothers will come out on video talking about raping a woman's okay in the scriptures. God said it's okay. Never mind. None of that stuff is, brothers, like, you'll see so many people just deviating so much from the scriptures is ridiculous. Verse 15. This is interesting. Verse 15. Then Amnon hated her after he slept with her, or forced her, or raped her. Then Amnon hated her exceedingly, so that the hatred wherewith he hated her was greater than the love wherewith he loved her. And Amnon said unto her, Arise and be gone. Now, this is interesting because this shows you at the end of the day what type of thing that you're dealing with. Just a spirit now. Immediately, the love, quote unquote, or the lust has turned from complete admiration, physically, whatever you want to call it, into immediate distaste. Couldn't stand to look at her. Get out of here. Now, why would that be? How can something switch that quickly, right? These things is spirits. We're talking about these things of laying down with somebody or just breaking God's law. It's just not as minuscule as people try to make it to be. Like, it's not that big of a deal. There's no ramifications. It's just you don't have to believe in that. It's a sky god. None of this stuff makes any sense. There is no good or bad. I can do what I want. Nothing's ever going to happen to me. Couldn't be further from the truth. But this will show you how somebody is so inflamed with their thought and their lust. And then immediately once it's done, the spirit completely is gone. And then I can't even stand to look at you, a person that you would have moved heaven and earth to sleep with. Now all of a sudden you can't stand them. The same theme from the jump with Adam. Cain and Abel was the exact same. Let's go to 1 John. Yeah, I won't need to read the rest of it. Let's go to 1 John. 1 John chapter 3. And let's start at verse 8. 1 John chapter 3 and verse 8. It says, He that committeth sin is of the devil, for the devil sinneth from the beginning. For this purpose the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil. There's that dualism again, that good, if good exists, evil's there. If evil exists, good is there. There's that balance. I think it's in Sirach 41 where the Lord says that he didn't make anything unequal. These things are balancing each other out. Verse 9, Whosoever is born of God doth not commit sin, for his seed remaineth in him, and he cannot sin because he is born of God. Verse 10, if you don't, I don't know, but if you don't understand, not saying, it's not a contradiction to what the scriptures will say, a righteous man falls 7 times. We're trying to Christ, when Christ comes, he's trying to help you to understand, to get you to the point of differentiating between a person that lives to sin or a person that is struggling and slips. That's a significant difference between the two, right? A person can't say, it sounds good, I guess this works in the world. But in the truth, it doesn't make any sense. You can't say that with you struggle with lust, but every single time the opportunity presents itself, you just go, every time, you just go do it. Every time is not slipping or having conviction or remorse about something you did. That's different. That's different. Though the Most High doesn't give you a license to sin, but that's a completely different scenario versus a person that's just like, yes, I struggle with lust, but my career profession is I'm an adult porn star. No, that doesn't work. You are a person living to do sin. That's completely different, right? Verse 10. In this, the children of God are manifest, and the children of the devil. Whosoever doeth not righteousness is not of God, neither he that loveth not his brother. Now it starts to pivot. Verse 11. For this is the message that ye heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. Verse 12. Not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, and slew his brother. And wherefore slew he him? Why did he kill his brother? Because his own works were evil, and his brothers were righteous. Now, you have a lot of situations where you'll have people might think, I don't want to say romanticized. I guess you could. People just don't necessarily know the context of the situation literally between Cain and Abel. But the distinction is drawn between he just killed him because of his sacrifice, right? Versus understanding what's going on with Cain. It's this exact same situation when you have people, you're doing righteousness and people don't want you around them because it only highlights, if you're that good and I'm not like you, I must be that evil. And you can be convicted in it. So a person drives a person crazy to where they don't want you around them or commit murder. It's the same thing Cain did. The same, like in Wisdom of Solomon 2 starts off about using this life as it's just an adventure, right? And a person becomes convicted if I see somebody else who's just like, oh, you find women do this a lot. When you 4 years ago couldn't told me that there's something wrong with going to the club. Yeah, I feel you, bro. Shalom, Isaiah. I feel you. This is the exact same thing. 25 years ago, you couldn't have told me nothing wrong with it. Yeah, of course not. Because you're not thinking about none of that stuff. Your flesh is in full activation mode. And your spirit's just, it's on his last leg. Until the Most High pours something in you, turns your spirit up. And then you be like, dang, I'm really evil. And you start to realize this stuff. And it's crazy because like with Cain, you start doing certain things and you start making other people have convictions about what they're doing. They're forced to look at themselves in a particular light. And a person does not like that. Most people don't like to look in the mirror. You'll see this, like I've seen this, women do this consistently. I don't know if men do this in a different way, but men are pretty open with competition. They have that's kind of like innate in them, but they're pretty open with it. They don't really care. They'll just speak on it. Women do this thing where they're like, they present themselves as like this. It's like this. They answer everything politically correct. It's PC, and I think maybe that's part of being innate in women too, because they're not as overtly competitive as men, but they are covertly. Like when you watch them, like a woman will say something like, I see this all the time, right? You'll see a woman will say something that she does for her man, right? The Simone Biles thing, right? That was one of the things. You'll see a woman say something like, I treasure my marriage more than I ever cared about single life. I shut my Instagram or all these different things off because I don't like the attention from outside men. My man asked me to do that, and I feel I need to pay him that respect. And then you'll see the situations where women come out of the woodwork. You shouldn't let him control you like that, sis. You shouldn't listen. You're not his pet. You're not this and that. You're your own woman. You can be independent. And you see all these different things, and it's like women will give their other women advice to make them their lives horrible consistently. They do this all the time, and they'll try to pull themselves down all the time because it's a reflection of themselves. I can't have you out here telling me that you're going to sit down and be like, you know what, fulfill the role that a woman's supposed to fulfill. But I can't do that because I want somebody as a man to be able to listen to me. We're partners, but do everything I say. I'm not going to shut anything off. I'm going to dress how I want. I'm going to say what I want. I'm going to go where I want. But we're partners, and I respect you nonetheless. But just allow me to do whatever I want to do. Women don't like that. You see these things come out, and then all of a sudden, all these women start to get attacked. And you'll see this consistently, right? Because it just shines a light on if you have too many righteous people around you, it's going to make me look bad. You you can have a you surround people like evil communications. I wouldn't say it does corrupt good manners, but when you find like the what's the Sirach 27, when it's essentially talking about the birds, it's the birds of a feather flock together, right? A woman that puts herself out there that the whole block or school has slept with, or a college university, it's embarrassing and it's disgusting. But then if you take that girl and you match her up with other girls from other campuses in college and put them all around, they've all slept with all the people from all their colleges, then they found more proud about themselves. They'll boast themselves up. Yeah, girl, you should be able to live your life and sexual liberation, all this other stupid crap. You see this all the time. But once you put righteous women around them and be like, that's ridiculous. You shouldn't give yourself over to any man that treats you like crap. Then they start to shrink and they don't like that feeling. So they'll lash out or they'll just leave. Cain's situation was no different. He looks at him as being righteous. The Most High accepted what he did. And then the Lord tells you, listen, I'll accept you if you do what you need to do, or else, let's go to Ezekiel 29, or else sin lies at the door, right? It's stretching itself out to make itself a visitor in your home or a permanent resident, right? Let's go to Ezekiel 29. Ezekiel 29, verse 2. It's prophetic, but 3 is the point. Verse 2, Son of man, set thy face against Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and prophesy against him and against all Egypt. Verse 3 is the point. Speak and say, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I am against thee, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the great dragon that lieth in the midst of the rivers, which hath said, My river is mine own, and I have made it for myself. The pride level that the scriptures is talking about, whether you're talking about ancient Egypt and Pharaoh, or we talking about the spiritual Babylon or spiritual Egypt that we're talking about right now, spirits is still the same. That level of pride, when the scriptures talk about sin lieth at Cain's door, it's the same thing with the Pharaoh. That that pride, it starts to take possession of you, right? It's what the Lord said that it's going to sit. If you don't do what's righteous, you're going to befall this stronghold that it has on you. And we know flesh just amplifies all of it. So all you need, the right recipe. The flesh itself is always, uh, if you will, lighter fluid, right? And all you need to meet is the right person that just the match. It's just going to set you off every single time. It makes you a slave to whatever lust it may be. Like I mentioned in James 1, where it just draws you away. I don't know what it is. Typically, men's is lust. Some people have anger, whatever it may be. But that's what it does. It starts to make you a slave of it, and you start to see the ramifications of it. Let's go to Wisdom of Solomon 10. Wisdom of Solomon 10 and verse. Wisdom of Solomon 10 and verse 6. It says, When the ungodly perished, she delivered the righteous man who fled from the fire which fell down upon the 5 cities. Now we know this is talking about Sodom and Gomorrah, right? There's still 5 cities in that in the vicinity that got hit. It's not just talking about Sodom and Gomorrah, right? It's 5 of them. Of whose wickedness, even to this day, The wasteland that smoketh is a testimony, and plants bearing fruit that never come to ripeness, and a standing pillar of salt is a monument to an unbelieving soul. Now, it's a testament to this day. We're talking about the testament of the testimony of Christ. We're talking about these different things that's going to last forever, right? This is what happens. The ramifications are seeing, as the class topic is seeing sin through. The picture of the class is the man standing like he's about to push a domino. He's like unaware that if he hits this one, whatever he does on this side is going to come back on the other side. This is life, right? So this pillar of salt that's sitting there is a reminder for everybody. This is the reputation that befalls you, right? This is the thing that follows you. But people think that these, oh no, it's just this life and that's it. Like all life is just an adventure. Get into whatever. It's funny how nobody thinks about their life as anything else discovering besides pleasure. It's funny how that works out. But life is just whatever you make it, and everybody flows in that direction, right? The pillar of salt is a monument to an unbelieving soul. Why? Because it's a reminder of a person, what's going to happen to a person that does not believe. And it's standing there as a constant reminder. Verse 8, for regarding not wisdom, they gat not only this hurt, that they knew, not the things which were good, but also left behind them to the world a memorial of their foolishness, so that in the things wherein they offended, they could not so much as be hid. Now, this would be this would be like people will talk about the reputation precedes you, right? Like when you look at like I think it's Genesis 19. When you look at Genesis 19 about Simon Moore, you know, say never give, which is, I mean, I guess it's not necessary. She's famous enough, but they never give Lot's wife's name. They never mention her name. It's just Lot's wife, right? You should. I don't know. I find that odd. Her reputation precedes her, right? We don't necessarily need to know her name, but if I say Lot's wife, everybody knows what I'm talking about. It's like the Lord says in Exodus 20, remember the Sabbath day, right? Remember it specifically. Let it always be a reminder to keep it holy, right? And then Luke 17, I think it's Luke 17 says to remember Lot's wife. Don't ever forget her. Her reputation, anybody ever mentions her, it's a repetitive understanding. It should never leave your thought process that this is the shining example of what happens to a person that's unbelieving soul, to where like you're written in history, right? Like people's names. Like if I just threw out like uh, people in history, Hitler, right? Stalin, Dahmer, these people like Esau. If you throw out these names and stuff, these people's reputations precede them because these things that they've done. All you got to do is throw out their name, and people know that followed them. Right? This is what sin does. Let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 10. Ecclesiastes chapter 10. We just about to wrap up. Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse 1. It says, dead flies cause the ointment of the apothecary to send forth a stinking savor. So doth a little folly or foolishness him that is in reputation for wisdom and honor. And this is the overwhelming thing with sin. You start to engage in a little bit of foolishness. Sin is oftentimes, for the right people, it's regretful. You feel remorse from it because you know, and it's innate, you know this bad thing that you've done, especially when you start to understand your position with the Most High. I shouldn't be doing these different things. It doesn't glory the Most High in any way. It doesn't help my situation get closer to the kingdom. It draws me away. And the further you draw away, the closer you are to Satan. It's not going to help you, right? But this is the thing, sin sticks on you. The reputation comes. And all these different things that have happened that you don't want to be known for or famous for follow you everywhere, right? Like the same thing we just reading about in Amnon. If somebody said, uh, if somebody said, You know the story. I'm trying to think of the story in the Bible, but I can't remember where it's at or the guy's name. And they'd be like, I don't, you know, what about him? Give me something. What's his brother's name? They'd be like, I don't know, but he was the guy that raped his sister. Everybody's gonna know and be like, oh, that's you might not remember, but that's Amnon. That's your reputation that follows you everywhere. It's not a good thing to be known by. You're written in the etched in stone in the history of the world. That's not good, right? That's not something that you want to be known for. The guy that raped this. That's not a good thing. Some people don't necessarily care, but these people have this mindset where it's like, if I do this, I don't really worry about. There is no such thing as ramifications of breaking a celestial uh, law that the Most High God has set. But then somehow there's repercussions for the guy down the street that became a politician. He passed a law, and then you have to pay for something that you broke. When you broke that law, you have to do whatever you can to reconcile the fine, the jail time, or whatever. Everything works like this. Everybody understands that, but somehow they're dumbfounded when God says you're going to pay for these different things that you do in due time, right? Revelation 1, another example. Revelation 1. For a person that might say something like that, to be like, oh, well, it's Lord, Lord's not going to care about that. It doesn't matter, right? People say this stuff all the time. It's direct scripture for, I think it's in Sirach 5. The direct things, people are just like, the Most High just forgets about these different things that you do. Revelation 1 and 7, it says, behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so, amen. Verse 8, I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, saith the Lord, which is, which was, which is to come, the Almighty. Now, verse 7 mentions about when the Lord comes back, even the ones that pierced him are going to know. What you did, this we're talking about 2,000 plus years ago. This is going to stick with you. The graves are going to be open. People are going to pop up. And whatever you did 2,000 something years ago is going to bring judgment on you that the Lord never forgot about. Years and years later. That's why the Lord says things like every idle word, like you got to be careful. I'm a person that's got to be careful with certain things like that too. We're all on the chopping block at the end of the day. But your resume for sin might not be as bad as somebody else's, at least post understanding Christ. Maybe. We all still have faults at the end of the day. I don't necessarily compare myself to try to be like I'm more righteous than somebody else. I tell people all the time, I'm not the guy. I'm not the guy to look up to. Don't look up to Christ. I'm not that guy. Everybody's falling short. But you should understand that the things that you do today, you're gonna have to answer for when the time comes. If the Roman didn't forget, or the Most High didn't forget about the Roman, you can sure believe that the Most High is checking for Israel's sins and the stuff that they're doing as well, right? Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. Hebrews 12 and verse 1. It says, wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which does so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. Right? This let me read verse 2 as well. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, for who the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. So this is a race, right? It's not to the swift, remember? But this is something that you have to endure. This is a marathon, right? But sin does very easily beset us. It's everywhere. Like it's just sitting there on the side to consume you consistently. With technology makes it worse. Um, the people are colder nowadays, so it's like the recipe for disaster right now. It kind of always was, but like there's certain things in different time periods that make things worse. I can imagine walking around Rome with bathhouses and people having sex outside, and you dealing with lust. It's probably a different game. But nowadays it's just modern technology to make those things at your fingertips consistently, whatever may be that makes sin so prevalent. It's so many avenues. of death, right? You can make a friend out of all kinds of different things. And then, but eventually you have to pay an answer for the stuff that you've done, right? But this is a race. So you got to take your time, be patient, understand that the Most High is with you and everything that you're doing. I know sometimes it don't necessarily, in moments of weakness or moments of struggles, um, I mean, maybe just maybe thoughts of just reflection, and you feel like you might hit some type of clarity in whatever you're doing. You might feel at times the Most High not there. He is. He's not going to answer you. It's not a genie. But make sure you know the difference between the Most High supplying needs versus the Most High supplying wants. It's two different things. um, you might kind of get them. They might seem to kind of like run into each other a little bit and become blurry. It's not the Most High. That's the best thing you can ever have at the end of the day. These struggles be real, but the best thing you can have at the end of the day is a father sitting over you, knowing when to give you what at what time. You can't have it any better than that, because you trust me. You don't want to pick for yourself. If you've lived long enough on the earth, most of us have lived that life, and then you circle all the way back around to the Most High, and you realize how you've been doing your entire life is completely wrong, right? Last scripture, John chapter, I think it's John chapter 12. Nope. John chapter 15, verse 22. It says, if I had not come, verse 22, if I had not come and spoken unto them, they had not had sin, but now they have no cloak for their sin. He that hateth me, hate my Father also. And this works simultaneously. This is why I said people, they know. People are playing games, and they're trying to act as if, I don't believe what you're telling me about God and the way this works. But what you're telling me backs up everything about how life works in general. How there's cause and effect to everything. How animals act a certain way. We read in Job 6 earlier about how the ox or the ox won't bray when it doesn't have fodder, or it lowers its head over the fodder. If it doesn't, like animals is talking about, if it doesn't have food, they cry out because it's a cause and effect. If you don't have something, these things like Job was talking about, he's lamenting these situations he's going through and expressing these things because the cause is Satan tormenting him. So we know animals operate like that, humans operate like that. Nothing is created out of nothing. We know everything that's created comes from a creator. Everybody understands this stuff. It's just when it comes to the scriptures, they just, go simple and just be like, oh, no, that can't be true. Because we know if they admit, if they come to terms with the reality and they admit that everything in life makes sense and the Bible matches that, the exact same example, they'll admit the things about life and animals and everything outside of themselves. But if they admit that this is true, then they have to change who they are, and they can't hold on to the stuff that they enjoy out of pleasure. That's why they don't have a problem admitting, everything else you're saying makes sense, but just not me changing or me adhering to any laws, or pork being unclean and me not getting that, or having sex before marriage. That doesn't make any sense to me. We know it does. Everybody believes it. We know it does. It's not. Nobody likes to see the reflection of themselves in the mirror. They don't. They rather go towards people like Cain than be, I wouldn't even say sharing the spotlight, but in the same vicinity as an Abel, the one that's going to make them force themselves to look at themselves. It's the same reason why Christ said, when I come, you hate me, now you hate the Father. It works simultaneously. Verse 24, if I had not done among them the works which none other man did, they had not had sin. But now have they both seen and hated both me and my Father. So we know that this thing works the way it does because cause and effect rules everything. We know that people understand more than they put on, because I've seen plenty of people show me their intellect day in and day out for months and years. And then when it comes time, all of a sudden, accountability comes up. Then all the intellect they had for years, I don't even understand what you're saying. That doesn't make any sense that uh, men physically and sperm meet the egg to create life. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense that I wasn't born gay. Well, yeah, it does. Your body's telling you you weren't born that way. Your physical form is showing you that you're not supposed to operate like this. I don't even know what other expression you would use to back up the premise that you were born gay if your entire embodiment that you walk around in is not even showing you that that's even possible. None of that stuff makes any sense. But now, since you got the PhDs, you got all this intelligence, now it can't make sense of men are supposed to be with women. I can't make sense of the ramifications and the dangers that come from casual sex. Doesn't make any sense, right? I don't care. Abortion is not a real thing. It's just a fetus. I'm like, well, you know what? We can fix all that. Let's not engage in casual sex. No, that doesn't make any sense. Can't do that, right? The stuff that people will cope with to stay in sin is always it's fascinating. But again, I always say all the time, if I'm not confused, if you can't fool me, like you can start there. If you can't fool me that you don't understand, good luck serving or trying to trick the Most High. This does not going to make any sense, right? Um. Uh. That's a wrap. Um. Happy Sabbath, ladies and gentlemen. Happy new moon. Lord's will next time. I pray that it made some sense or gave some edification on some level. If it didn't, you, it always does me at the end of the day. So, always a privilege to be able to just speak the Most High's word and try to, put some sense to it, give some sense as the scriptures say. So, happy Sabbath, everybody. Enjoy the day of rest. Keep praying. I found some video earlier on Instagram was crazy. Things are escalating in the Middle East over there. So um, don't rest on your laurels, man. I know whatever everybody's life's different, but we're all going through the same struggle, if you will. If that makes sense. Just at different degrees. But just stick to it. Keep pressing forward. The kingdom's coming. Nobody knows the time, but we know it's heading here, and we're inching closer and closer. So don't give up your chance at eternity. There's nothing in this world to offer you. Like it's not a fair exchange. Don't give it up. This world sucks. It's terrible. This little pleasure here and there, is it really worth it? It never is. That's always the answer. It never is. So don't give up something that's going to be lasting forever. You don't ever have to get tired of. You're happy all the time. You never get sick. Nobody dies. Don't give that up for something temporary, like freaking Newports 100s. I seen Jacob put a post the other day talking about some Newports $10 a pack now. That should be starting to deter some of you smokers from putting that poison in your body. But uh, with that being said, y'all, shalom, most high in Christ bless. Lord's will next time. Happy Sabbath, happy new moon. Stay up, Israel. Shalom.